Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is fix the skid steer again. So this is my 610 Bobcat that I swapped a Duromax 35 horsepower motor into it, and I documented that whole scenario. There's a couple of still things I have to finish up. I gotta wire this clacker pump in and stuff, but I haven't been using it much because it doesn't start anymore. Well, it does. Unfortunately, you have to use this stuff to get it to start. So it cranks over and cranks over and cranks over, nothing happens. So I pull the air filter off, squirt some ether down there, and then it fires up and it runs okay. If you let it sit for more than a day or two, it doesn't run anymore. You got to keep spraying ether down it, which is bullshit. So I called up the Duromax people, and they promptly set me a fuel pump. This little guy here, it just uses crankcase pressure diaphragm thingy. But one of the other pieces of information that probably should let you know is they were first saying it didn't start because it had too big of a battery, and then they had me check the battery voltage while it was cranking. It was kind of low. So while it was doing that, I also checked the voltage when it was running, and it only has 13.15 volts when it's running, and it has 13.1 when it's not running. So that's not enough. It should have 14.4 or more when it's running. So with that newfound information, they also sent me a new voltage regulator. So I'm not sure how this is supposed to work, but they're sending me parts, but I keep having to spend my time working on the fucking thing, and yeah, it's kind of pissing me off. So anyway, we'll get going on this. I got to pull all this junk off of here. The regulator's in the front there, so that's going to be kind of hard to get to. And then the pump is under this cover here. So yeah, we'll get some tools out here, and we'll see if we can't get this thing to work properly. I put this motor in. If you watched any of the other series, I put this motor in because the Wisconsin was so hard to get started. Like, you have to have a master's degree in combustion technology to get the things done, get things started. So the one thing I wanted out of this motor was you push the button and it starts up every time. Like, any idiot can do it, and that's exactly what I didn't get. So other than that, the motor seems good. It does make some big poofs of smoke when you first start it up, which I have a feeling when it gets broken in and the rings seat and everything, it'll probably be better. But I don't know if that's normal or not. Anyway, we'll get going on this. Help from my cell phone light. It's right there. So it's on a little bracket. So the way this fuel pump works is the crankcase, when the pistons both come down together, sorted together, creates a high pressure in the crankcase, and that pushes the diaphragm. So every rotation of the crank pushes the diaphragm, and then that actuates like a small block Ford or a small block Chevy. It pushes a little diaphragm, and there's a check valve on the inlet and the outlet, and so pump, pump, pump. So mechanical parts, I don't know how this thing could fail, so I don't really understand how this is going to fix it. But this filter has lots of fuel in it, and the fuel level's up here 3 feet above it. So, and once it starts running, it's fine. It's just when it sits. Look at that. The new one already had a bracket. Didn't notice that earlier. I wouldn't have needed to take the bracket off, but there we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I got a pair of needle nose vice grips and I just put some duct tape around the outside of them so I can pinch that hose and it won't continue leaking all over hell in half of Georgia. And this thing has like, this vice grip has some serrations on it, so I don't want that to ruin the hose. So well, that's kind of what it did before, except for this time it actually started to begin with. And then it just ran out of fuel. So I think if I squirt some starting fluid down this hole, so I don't know if you could see that real good, but basically the front cylinder is about 600 degrees and the rear cylinder is about 200 degrees. And I'm not an expert on this particular motor, but those should be very, very close to the same. Very, very close. Within 20 degrees or something. So, and I don't know if you noticed, but there's flame shooting out here every once in a while, like spits and sputters. So I don't know if one of the venturis is clogged up and it's just not getting any fuel to that cylinder. But something's not right. This is not how it's supposed to be. So I'll be calling my local Duromax representative and see what they have to say. Maybe I'll send them this this video. Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is replace this brand new motor. So I replaced the Wisconsin motor a few months back with this Duromax 999 35 horsepower, and from day one it's been a little bit of a challenge trying to get it to work properly. So first I had to replace the panel, and then that seemed to make it work better, but then if you let it sit for more than a couple days, it didn't want to start. I have to spray ether down the air filter to get it to start. And then then it started, well, I don't know if it ever charged, but it's not charging the battery up, so I'd have to keep the battery, have to constantly charge the battery, so that's not great either. So they've been really good about sending me new parts, but they sent me a new fuel pump to make it so it would start up. Didn't fix anything. They sent me a new regulator to make it charge. That didn't do anything. So I think the only thing to be wrong with charging is internally the stator winding is screwed up. So unfortunately they can't just send me a new motor, and I've modified some stuff. I put this thing on the exhaust, so I'm gonna have to chop that off and re-weld it to the replacement. The rest of the stuff's no big deal. Put this air filter on here, that wasn't a big deal. But I mean, that's the majority of the modifications I've done. But yeah, it's when it works great. But the purpose of putting this motor in was to make something that's you can get in it, anybody can get in it, push the start button, and it goes. And I just can't do that with this. The battery constantly, dies, and it doesn't want to start. And then when it does start, it kind of backfires and shoots. I did get my infrared gun and aim it at the exhaust pipe, and just idling that one's like 600 and this one's like 200. So this cylinder's not firing, not getting fuel. I don't know if it's carb clogged up or I don't know what's wrong. But anyway, this motor I think was built on a Friday, so I'm going to pull it out of here, send it back to them. They're going to send me a new one, and then we'll do the whole deal again, and hopefully it'll fix everything. Okay, so I don't know, it didn't take very long, maybe 45 minutes. Pulled the muffler off first, and then squished the belt into the pulley, took the pulley off, moved the pump up yonder. Now the motor is like, disconnected this fuel pump thingy. So now I just need to get it up on its ramp. I also disconnected the battery cables, obviously, in the fuel line. And before I put it in the box, I'm going to have to bring the oil out of it because I won't chip it with oil. But yeah, that went pretty well, actually. Filter, there's the variable speed drive, the other half. Belt for the hydraulic pump. So yeah, this went a lot better than I thought it was going to go, honestly. So minimal amount of oil. I had to disconnect the pump so I could put it up there. So a little bit of oil came out of there, maybe, I don't know, not much, pint or something. Oh, and I had to disconnect the hoses that go to the control panel. So all in all, not a terrible job though. The old vice grip on the fuel line trick. So we'll get this thing out and get it packaged and sent the fuck off. Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is fix this skid steer again. So I pulled the original motor out because it wasn't charging, and again Duromax came through. I sent the old motor back, they sent me a new one. So this one's gonna run on the ground there. I'm going to just hook a battery, put some oil in, hook the battery to it, make sure it runs, charge is good, and then we'll install it. But when I was using this thing, before I put this motor in, I pressure washed it nice and clean. This is nice and clean, relatively. And with it clean, I could tell that there was a leak on this fitting right here. So, well, I got the motor out. I figured I'd fix that guy while I'm at it, so I don't have to put cardboard under it every time I park it. So, trying to wrestle this fitting off of here, which, it's been on there for 60 years or whatever, 50 years. Doesn't want to come off, but a little WD-40 and a little, you know, torch action and some pry bar action. I managed to get it loose, but now I still have to, you know, turn a little, flip the wrench around, turn a little, flip the wrench around, turn a little, flip the wrench around. So it's working. It's just a little bit time consuming. Can't see anything. What am I doing here? Is it focusing at all? Okay, so I got that thing wrangled out of there. It wasn't terrible. However, let me understand, it had this little thing sticking out of here and here. So those guys, just a little, like an 1/8 inch pin. And I'm wondering if that's my source of leakage. Okay, so I got this thing all cleaned up. There's the weirdness. And this thing looks like it's sort of like an anti-backflow valve. You can see that in there. It's got a little restrictor that restricts more in one way than the other. I'm going to pop this thing apart, and I don't know, I think that could be source of our leak because everything was super tight. I'm wondering if that is causing our leak. We shall find out. That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. Okay, so, I don't know if you can see down there, but there's a pin. Right there. And somebody is assuming that it won't leak under pressure. I'm here to tell you, you can't rely on a press fit to make a leak-free joint. You just can't. Don't try it. It doesn't work. So I think I'll either probably just like weld that up, weld it there, weld it there, and then it won't fucking leak. Yeah, I think it was just leaking right out of there. This one looks relatively sealed, but yep. See that black stuff? That means it was fucking leaking. Okay, well, yep, that's what happens when you try to weld over oil. Now, my tungsten was super sharp before, and now, I don't know if you can see that, it's all fucked up. So, this is how I sharpen my tungstens. Doesn't mean you have to, but basically I have this old, I think it's 6 volts or something. It's old. It'll drill about 1 hole before the battery's dead, but that's fine because I just hold this up to the grinder and I want to spin it real slow anyway. And I get a nice sharp tip on that without trying to twirl it by hand. So anyway, you can pick these up at your local thrift store for $5 or something. They don't work great, but they work great for this. Okay, so that's what it looks like, all sharpened up. Just like sharpening a pencil, but tungsten. Okay, so there you have it. I don't know if you noticed, but I marked this prior to taking it apart so I get the clocking the same. It's not that critical, honestly, because but I want to make sure the tightness of this one and this one is the same as this one and this one, because if I go too far in this one, then that one will go too far and then it won't be in the right spot and be loose. Anyway, so that's why I did it. And sometimes with MPT you just can't go another round. Okay, so all reassembled. It's the shiny clean one down there. And it looks good. Everything fit right back together beautifully. So now we can get this motor back in. Okay, back at it. So, while I had this thing off, I decided to make some improvements. So I whittled this up on the lathe, which is basically just a pilot. There's a 17 millimeter pilot right here, so that slides into that, and then a 5/8 18 bolt that holds it on there. So, and the reason I did that was because these set screws here just barely hang on to the crank. So I wanted to move those over a little bit so there was some more support. So anyway, did that. They also changed a few things on this motor from the last one I had. This didn't have this, I don't know if it's a guard or a, make sure you put the dipstick in the right way, because if you put it in upside down it'll read a little bit different, I guess. So that's a little bit different, but I haven't noticed any other stuff different. Everything else looks kind of the same, which is good. Put all this stuff back on. I was thinking about popping this guy apart as well, just to show how it all goes together. I had this apart in the previous, I don't know, a few years ago when I had to repair it. Okay, so I had a plan, I didn't need it. So basically what I did was I put this guy over the original shaft here, and then I put this extension shaft on there. So this is how much, this little black line is how much it's engaged now. It was that much, now it's that much. So that's better. So basically I put this onto this shaft, and then I put this in and I tighten this bolt up, and it slides right on and off now. So I think it just this acted as an alignment tool. So now that that's aligned, it should be fine. So I got this muffler on with, well, 4 of the 6 bolts. This bolt won't go in. If I put this one and this one and that one, then that one won't go in. So I'm gonna have to elongate the holes. And this bolt won't go in as well. So, and it pulls like a 3mm gap here. This one I managed to get in, but this one won't. So I'm gonna have to take this off anyway because the exhaust is coming out over here, which is not really what I desire. So I'm gonna have to pop it off anyway. I'll fix it then. For now, I just want to make sure the charging system works and make sure it starts and doesn't take 10 seconds of holding the button down before it starts doing anything, you know, the stuff it did before. So I've kind of tied this belt up so when this shaft is spinning around, it's not going to chop a hole in it. So I just got a ratchet strap on there. That should be fine. And the pump's not hooked up, so none of this is going to leak because the pump's, right? It's just the motor is spinning and that's it. So the only thing spinning is this pulley, which is fine. I've already topped it up with oil. I might have showed you that earlier, that they added a, this one has a little bash guard on it. I'm not sure if this was a newer edition or an older version. I think you can see that's right on the tippy top number. Might go down a little bit once it fills the cooler up. Another thing that I didn't do on this is I didn't switch the valve covers. This doesn't work. I'm going to be so pissed anyway. But I could always switch that. It's not that big of a deal. Pop the seat out. It's pretty easily accessible. So, and I'm going to be here anyway fixing on the muffler because as you can see, it's not an ideal exhaust outlet location, but not to worry. So I just need to hook up fuel line to that guy. Get the vice grip off here. And then we should be able to fire this bad boy up. Okay, so I got the fuel line hooked up. It's bolted down with 2 bolts. Exhaust is on with a few. And then I put this U-bend on there just to, I don't know, aim the exhaust gases this way. Seems good. I'm going to get the voltmeter. .4 volts now, so fixed. Now I just have to take it all back apart, put it back together again. Okay, so pop the muffler off. There's all the bolts for it, and knock this thing back out. Turned it sideways. Now I can get that giant shiv pulley on there, and then I think I can just rotate back into position, and then put the outer shiv pulley on through this access hole over here. So all in all, pretty easy deal actually. I'm super relieved that this thing starts up, runs good, 14.4 volts, perfect, exactly what it should be. So I think there was just something wrong with that other motor. And yeah, I can't say enough about Duramax's sending me spare parts. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is get this belt as centered in this pulley as feasible. In order to get that clip on, you have to have a minimum possible distance. So I'm not using this to kind of wrench on it, I'm just using it to hold it. And then jiggle it around. Move it in a little bit, jiggle it around, move it in a little bit. It's joy. Okay, so that's where that snap ring needs to go, and it looks like that's just barely far enough in. So now I can get that snap ring on, pop that cant twist clamp off of there, and that'll be one more job done. There we go. That goes down in the recess now, and now I can put that fitting on there and hook up this little hoser doodle. And then we'll have a continuously variable transmission. Top of the morning to you. So I got this thing all installed yesterday. Nothing much more to say about that. Except for last night I made a gluey tube for the exhaust and painted it, so I had to wait for it to dry. So it's morning now and it's dry, so it should be very close to done. I just need to put the muffler on, hook the power and ground cables to the battery, and we should be back to operational. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.